Hey, everybody. This is episode 65 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. And today we're going to talk about epilogues. We've done prologues before, and so now we're going to talk about epilogues. But before we get into that, how was your week?
Pretty exhausting. Still doing a bunch of experiments, trying to move pretty quickly to get a lot of data for school. I had to give a talk today, and those like wipe out my brain. So I apologize ahead of time for whatever this episode may be like. But it went well enough. And then, no, I'm tired. So it's been a long week.
I'm tired too. I had court today, in-person court, which is exciting. And I had a defendant who I think he's got a mental condition of some kind. He really does not understand. He thinks we're all out to get him. And so we start the hearing. There's another attorney on the other side with the mom, and he has no attorney, the dad. And we start, and he's like, I want to record this on my phone. And the judge was like, no, you can't record this on your phone. There's no private recordings allowed, but we can get a court reporter. We can continue this and have a court reporter. No, court reporters lie.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my Lord. But then finally he decided that he did want a court reporter. So we had to continue it.
Alrighty then.
And we're like lowering his child support to pretty much nothing because he's getting disability and all these things. He has PTSD, and I'm not making light of that. Certainly that's a real thing. But it was just frustrating.
It just sounds difficult.
And it was hard. I hate it when people think that I'm out to get them, that I'm being fraudulent, or all I want to do is help this guy. We're trying to lower his child support and he's not getting it. But anyway, so I'm very tired as well. And we're doing this late. So I've already eaten dinner. So I'm ready for not a nap. I'm about ready to go to bed.
A good old 8-hour nap.
What are you eating and drinking?
I'm drinking my usual tea. I'm very sleepy. So I figured drinking alcohol during this would make me even more sleepy. So I went the opposite route and did caffeine, which means, who knows if I'll sleep tonight. We'll see. But I ate a snack before this. And again, it was like a crunchy one. So I didn't want to have it while we were recording, but it was chips and a 5-layer dip. So it had like cheese and sour cream and salsa and guacamole and refried beans. So
did you take a picture?
I have more of it so I can take pictures, but no, I didn't. I stuffed my face.
you ought to take a picture. We should post that recipe.
Oh, I should. I didn't make it. I did buy it. I will. Yeah, I will put a disclaimer there. I did not make that, but it's very easy to make. I think just a layer of. Anyway, I'll do it someday, I guess.
Yeah. How fun is that? Because I would love to add that to our website, the recipes that we do. But lately, we haven't been eating at the same time. I already ate dinner. I came home from court and I was starving. So Dad made sausages with peppers and onions and guacamole and salad.
That sounds delicious.
I ate it. Like you, I stuffed my face. I was very hungry. I don't eat much before court.
Yeah.
I don't, I've done this for 35 years, so I shouldn't be nervous. It's not nervousness. I just gear myself up for it. I don't know. So I'm not hungry. I'm in court mode.
I do the same thing. I did not eat lunch today. I ate breakfast because I wasn't nervous yet. And then throughout the day, I did not eat lunch because I had that talk at 4.
Yeah.
And so got home and I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat before we start podcasting. So.
Well, I have jokes, but
wait, what are you drinking?
Wait. Just my wine. This is so sad. Speaking of the caffeine, what I had wanted to do, and I've been too tired the last couple times we've done the podcast. There's this coffee drink that your dad had up in Helen.
Oh, I think you told me about it.
And I want to try to recreate it, except for I was going to do it as a martini, so a coffee martini.
Right. What was it, like whiskey and coffee? I don't remember.
It was honey whiskey and coffee and cream, which we have some honey vodka. We still haven't gotten the honey whiskey. I'm not a big whiskey fan anyway, but I bet the honey vodka might be fine. And then the cream.
Yeah.
And I was going to put it in the little martini glass, which would be so festive, but
Someday.
That didn't happen. Your dad had bought me a new bottle of, he had run out to Kroger for something and bought me a bottle of a different brand of sparkling pink
Nice.
brut champagne that I can drink. And it's very good. So that's what I'm drinking.
Nice. Very nice.
So now I have jokes.
Okay, yes, let's hear the jokes.
Okay, but these jokes have nothing to do with our topic because I couldn't find anything on epilogues or endings, which I thought surely there would be ending jokes.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Well, there were happy ending jokes, but I wasn't going to go there on this.
No, that's okay.
No, we're not going to do the sexual thing on this podcast. So I found dad jokes instead.
Okay.
Okay. What rock group has 4 men that don't sing?
What?
Mount Rushmore.
Oh.
How many apples grow on a tree?
How many?
All of them.
Oh God, no.
Dad jokes. Dad jokes, I'm telling you. Did you hear about the guy who invented lifesavers?
No.
They say he made a mint.
Oh, bless. All right.
Okay, before we get started with our epilogue thing,
Yeah.
we finished watching Justified.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that the writers, although it was very, very well written and some of those lines were fantastic and I loved the dialogue, they didn't give me enough of the secondary characters.
Yeah.
I really wanted more, because they were great, what little bits we saw about them. And I would have loved to have known more backstory.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, did you mean like backstory or plot lines? Or
I mean,
whatever?
they gave us a
Everything, I
little
guess.
bit, like the girl, she goes through a divorce, but we don't hear anything about why or what, or there was no drama. We just,
Yeah.
And then the guy who was hilarious, he used to be a sniper in the army. And so we got to see a little bit of that, but I wanted to know his personal life.
Right.
I liked him. I wanted to know more about him. And they never did. They never, in 6 seasons, they didn't delve into that.
I feel like that's almost impressive to not like delve into those types of storylines with 6 seasons.
I know. I kept saying every season, I'm like, well, maybe next season we're going to learn more. So I just wanted to comment that was a very missed opportunity on their part.
Yeah.
There could have been a lot more. We did get a lot with the main character, Marshall, that Timothy Oliphant, or however you say his name.
Yeah.
And Boyd Crowder. Their relationships we knew a lot about, very in depth with their relationships. We know their backstory. We know their history. We know why they are the way they are. And that was very well done. But I just felt like, I wanted to tell our listeners, don't miss that opportunity like they did on Justified. Give more life to your secondary characters.
Definitely. No, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that because I know we've talked about character development, that kind of thing. And I was a little disappointed. I loved the series, but I was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is an epilogue?
Tell me.
Epilogue is a literary device that functions as a supplemental but separate part of the main story.
Okay.
It is the opposite of a prologue, which we talked about before. Right. As it comes at the end of your novel as opposed to the beginning.
Yeah.
It's from the Greek epilogos, which means concluding word. There's my nerdiness again.
No, I love it. I love that you've been adding the etymology of the topics that we've been discussing. It's great.
I can't help myself. What it reminds me of, the one that comes to mind when I think of epilogue is that Harry Potter epilogue.
Yeah.
And it's set, when Harry and the others have kids of their own, they're about to go to Hogwarts and that cycle is starting over again. So that's what I think of as an epilogue. And you can't just have that as a next chapter because that was 19 years ago. You can't, a chapter generally can't go that far. It can, but generally not.
Right.
It is a section or speech at the end of the book or play that serves as a comment on a conclusion to what has happened. And I'm sorry, guys, my throat's all scratchy for some reason. I've been talking all day in court.
I guess you need to just drink a lot more wine.
Mhm.
But I like that definition. I like the idea of having a piece that comments on the rest of the work.
Mhm.
I for whatever reason, I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Um, it is a short section. All of these are different definitions that I found in all the different blogs that I was looking at when I was researching. It is a short section situated directly after the final chapter. Writers typically employ an epilogue for a variety of reasons, ranging from a narrative resolution to a detour or continuation of the story.
Nice. Yeah.
So, what is the purpose of an epilogue? It can be a powerful way to leave your reader satisfied. And I think all the way through this, that seems to be an underlying purpose of the epilogue. You're trying to satisfy your reader.
I think that's pretty fair. And I think, honestly, that probably is the purpose. I mean, I'm sure you've got more to say on it, but I feel like that is the purpose of an epilogue, is to make sure that things are good for your reader so that you can end the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's intended to provide closure and resolution, and it's often set in the future, just like the Harry Potter one, to explain what becomes of your principal characters.
Right.
It was satisfying to know that Harry and Hermione married and that they had a kid of their own.
Not Harry and Hermione.
I mean, Harry and
Jenny.
Jenny. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Hermione married too, just not Harry.
Right, right.
But they all had children of their own, and the names that they named their children had meaning, and it helped tie all that together for us, the reader, and made us feel, oh, I'm complete now.
Yeah.
So it ties up a lot of loose ends from your novel, because in your final chapter, you can't, it's impossible to tie everything up. There is a way.
I don't know if it's impossible, but.
Well, it depends on how many plot lines you, like in a romance, it's very easy because it's usually those are very simplistic plot lines.
Right.
There might be a lot of them, but they're generally happy ever after type stories. And so it's easier, but like Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you tie all that up? And I mean, the ending isn't just one chapter. I guess we should do an episode on endings as well, but
true.
I don't think we have yet.
I don't know. We'll have to go back and look.
Yeah. But it helps tie up those loose ends. But it is not an afterword. An afterword focuses on how your novel came to be. It is largely to promote you and any of your other books. It's often a word from the author as opposed to part of the story.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's like a statement on the entire narrative, and it's frequently told from a different perspective and period of time.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
You should not ever reiterate your theme or remind not never. Never is.
We break rules here.
Yeah,
we're writers.
We don't use that word in this podcast, but you generally think about not reiterating your theme or reminding the reader of the moral of the story. Sometimes you overdo it when you try to do that. If you didn't do it in your book, then you probably, if you have to say in the epilogue, oh, by the way, the moral of the story was this, then you haven't done your job throughout the whole story.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was really curious about that because when you first started talking about it, it just was really interesting to me because I guess I think of everything you put in your novel should be fitting of your theme. So are you saying, it should just not outright state the theme or whatever? Okay.
Yeah. And don't, and this is why we learned all about love,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably going to have your theme within it, but it shouldn't be pointing it out.
Explicitly. Yeah.
Giving, this is the moral of the story. And so the moral is, don't ever do whatever, it should not compensate for a weak ending.
Yeah, I think this is a big one. Make your main story strong enough in itself and then see if you still need or want an epilogue.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times there is no need for an epilogue. You definitely don't have to have one.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had one.
Well, that was my interview question.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to think more on it as we go through all this stuff.
Yeah.
If you have nothing more to say, then don't say it. Don't do
Yeah.
an epilogue just because you think, oh, I should have an epilogue.
Right.
It's not a time to introduce new characters and situations. It's supposed to resolve everything. And if
Yeah,
you,
not bring up new questions.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the pros of an epilogue, you can use one to release tension. And I think everybody thinks about Moby Dick, that the way that story ended was so full of tension, that the epilogue was able to help ease that tension and let the reader settle back down. And again, kind of satisfy them as to, okay, this is the story. I'm okay with this now.
Right. Right.
It's a way to satisfy your reader by tying up things that you can't do within the confines of the story itself, like the Harry Potter one that's 19 years in the future.
Yeah, this one also made me think of Charmed, because when it
Oh,
ended, we got to see Leo and Piper as grandparents, and their kids and grandchildren had taken over the responsibilities of magic and
oh
all of that.
yeah. That gives me shivers. I forgot about that one. That was a good
I
one.
love that one, and every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, like that's so good. They got to grow old together and have all their kids and their grandkids. It's so good.
I would love another series with them at the ages that they are now,
Right? Yeah.
and in between
Yeah,
that, where the epilogue took us.
that'd be awesome.
Um, when your reader has an emotional connection to your character, because you've written a great story, they're going to want to know how that character eventually fares.
Yeah, that's a really nice point. I love to see like how all the characters end up in the future, but I think it's important also, I guess, to make sure it's necessary because I guess sometimes it's good to wonder about how they're doing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
It can be used to lead your readers toward the next book in your series. That, to me, that's an excellent reason to use an epilogue. Although even with the series, I don't think I've used one yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is a great way to set up your next book.
Right.
But that shouldn't be the entire reason for it. It's not an advertisement. You're not,
Right.
you
Right.
know, there should be a reason for the story that you have written right here to have this epilogue, not as come read my next book for $5.99.
Right.
It's not an ad.
Yeah.
The cons of epilogues, like prologues, a lot of agents and publishers don't like them.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
It is often seen as a lazy tool to cover up a weak ending, just like prologues are seen as a lazy tool
To start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and look at our prologue episode, but I know that there's a lot of dislike for those as well amongst the agents and publishers for some reason.
Yeah.
It can also be anticlimactic. I think you were kind of alluding to this earlier. Your readers like to use their imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's kind of open-ended, they might want to think, oh, well, maybe this happened or maybe this happened. And
Yeah, absolutely.
if you tie it up and it's not it could be anticlimactic.
Yeah.
So how to write an epilogue. It's generally set in the future.
Right.
With the passage of time comes insight. Think of Hunger Games. This one came up a lot for me as I was doing this research.
Yeah.
The epilogue in Hunger Games, Katniss is a mom, and she's seen the past through a mother's eyes, worrying about how to pass on the information of what happened to her children. And it lets us also know that she's survived and moved on.
Right.
Although she's definitely still damaged from all the trauma. That poor girl.
I wouldn't be surprised if she just always was.
Yeah, I don't think she'll ever get over it. But the
Yeah.
fact that she was able to move on and have children kind of lets us as the reader breathe a sigh of relief. She's survived and she's content.
Yeah.
And she's looking at the world with hope through the eyes of her children.
Right. Right.
So think about what's happened to your character.
Yeah, like how would they have moved on from the events in your novel, I guess? Or, would they have any lingering bitterness over conflicts that have happened to them or that they've been through, like that kind of thing, I guess.
Answer any questions you think the reader might have. Did they get married? Did they have children? How are they living with the drama they faced in your novel?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're going to have an epilogue, like be sure to include relevant information. Like you said, it needs to be about this book as
Mhm.
opposed to, any other story or whatever. And that made me think of your example with Harry Potter, his kids' names. Just adding those to the epilogue really let us, it rounded out the story a lot.
It did. I loved the names, the name they chose for their son and why. And it was another one of those, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. They remembered and they preserved his memory. And, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Their memory, I guess I should say. Their
Right, yeah.
memory is
So,
memories of, oh my God.
are you a writer?
I'm a writer, guys. Yeah, I'm sure everybody really wants to read my books right now. Reveal information that's not previously provided.
Mm-hmm.
So this can help your people see your novel in a new light. Given that new perspective, it can make the whole novel deeper. Like in Hunger Games, that perspective where you see she's looking back, and it gives that entire series a cohesive, in her, we can now look back as the reader and see it from a different light and see it's over now. She made it through all of those things. It kind of makes us feel whole. It gives us as the reader hope for the future of this dystopian world.
Yeah, definitely.
It can provide insight into the next book of a series, like I said.
Yeah.
Although, you should have done this throughout the book, like have unresolved plot lines or, open-ended questions like in your, not Louis and Delaney, the one in Savannah.
Oh, my MacBook.
Yes.
Under the Illusion. Yeah.
The love interest perhaps starts with an M.
Monroe.
Monroe. I have questions about him. And you've left those open. So I know I'm excited to read the next book where I know he's going to be there because I really liked him.
You're going to hate me a lot, but I want to rewrite that book.
Oh my God. Well, you get better every time. So I can't say anything. But so, yeah, don't use it as a cheap way to set up your next book. Like we said before, but I have seen it can be an actual scene from the next book.
That's so interesting to me. Like, does that count as an epilogue?
Probably not. It's probably more like, at the end of Kresley Cole's book, she would always have a snippet of the next book.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily an epilogue, depending on how you do it.
Yeah.
It can be an epilogue. Like it could be not necessarily a scene from the next book, but something that happens in the next, you're setting it up.
Right. I'm trying to think of my Aura series is going to be very much like the Kresley Cole series where the timelines kind of are interconnected. So while book 1 is happening, maybe book 4 is happening at the same time. And I could see like a really cool way to use an epilogue with that.
Yeah. Like maybe the explosion that happens in the epilogue is going to be in the next book.
Right, as like the kickoff or something.
Yeah. Kresley Cole was excellent at doing that, of having things happen in books that overlaid time.
Yeah.
Which is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
And she was brilliant at it. I hope she writes again soon. I hope she gets back to it.
Yeah.
I miss her books. Highlight the consequences of actions that happen throughout your novel. This is really interesting in the dystopian books. Your characters win, they overthrow the tyrant government. Well, then what?
Right.
So like Hunger Games, that was a perfect way for us to see what happened. The world is going on. They're rebuilding. They're moving forward as a society. So that was a really good way to do that.
That's a really good point. I really feel like dystopian novels would be extremely beneficial from that. And not even just dystopian. I mean, any world that's like, urban fantasy, things can get screwed up by magic. And so just seeing how the world fares after that would be really cool as an epilogue.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that in that type of genre, it might be really good to have an epilogue.
Can you hear my cat? Sorry to interrupt, but you can't hear my cat or
I
anything in the
heard
background?
something, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay, he's being annoying, so I apologize for any background noise.
He wants to play.
Yes.
You've been gone all day. He wants to
I
play.
know.
You're not
I
supposed to come
know.
home and sit at the computer.
Right.
Think about how to write the epilogue. Like what narrative, what point of view? Do you want it to be from the main character? Do you want it to be from the main character's child? Do you want it to be a secondary character who is now, in this epilogue, seeing the main character after they're, in this time in the future, and how they're faring from the second character's point of view, which actually might be helpful if the secondary character is going to be the main character in your next book in the series.
Right. Yeah.
First person, third person, think about those things. What's the most effective way to get across the purpose that you have for this epilogue? Because you need to have a purpose. You don't write it just because, I think I'll do an epilogue.
Right.
So you've got to have a purpose. So think about, as you're brainstorming, think about how is the best way to tie all this up, if that's what your purpose is, or how is the best way to get them ready for the next book without it being this cheap advertisement. Think it through before you and sometimes you can just free write too. Just because you've written it doesn't mean you have to use it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had a prologue that you wrote an entire thing for and then just decided not to use it.
Yeah, that was where my whole book came from. It was the Kada book, and I discarded it. So, but it was the beginning of everything. And if I hadn't had that prologue, that story would never have happened. So
yeah. And I imagine the same thing could happen for an epilogue. Like if you realize, oh, you know what, this storyline was actually really interesting, I could actually use that and do more with it. Would be a really cool way to use an epilogue that you don't actually end up putting in your book.
Yeah. So how long should an epilogue be? Well, it needs to be as long as it needs to be. Yay. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. Wasn't that a great piece of advice?
She does this with recipes too. I'll ask her for a nice homemade recipe and she'll be like, oh, it just until it looks right. And I'm like, Mother, I've never made this before. I don't know what it looks like.
Anyway, that really is a thing. It's until you're done.
Yeah.
I feel this way about chapters as well. I think anyone who tries to sit down and say, this chapter needs to be 10 pages and this chapter needs to be 20 pages. You can't, it's going to write itself. It's going to take as much time as it needs to take.
Right.
Get your point across for that scene, that chapter, whatever.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that will come out in like editing and revisions too. So like, don't worry too much about how long it is until, do you have too many words in it and your book is too long? Maybe then look at it and be like, oh, I could shorten this or something.
And then that being said, shorter is better generally for epilogues.
True. I would have to agree with this. I think, I hesitate to say you have to, but I think it can be way more impactful when it's shorter.
I think so too. And I mean, you finished the book is done, and so your brain is still trying to process it. The epilogue, how we all have those book hangovers.
Yeah.
The epilogue is kind of to help us resolve those unsettled feelings and be comfortable with the end of this book.
Yeah, definitely.
If that's what you want. Karen Munning likes to leave the ends of her books on total cliffhangers, and we're going, oh my God, we have to wait the next year for this book to come out.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you know if your novel needs an epilogue? Well, do you feel like your novel is unfinished? The climax happened, the plot's resolved, but does it feel incomplete?
Right.
Well, this may mean you just need to rewrite your ending. It might not be that it needs an epilogue. It might be a different problem. But then again, think of the Hunger Games one where, the ending was fine. They won. The bad guys were defeated. But that epilogue helped give us peace, knowing that she did more than just survive.
Right.
She moved on. She's had children. She has hope for the future. She's thinking about the life of her children's future. something that Katniss never had in her own life. She never had hope for herself in her own life.
Yeah.
And so it gives us a completeness.
Definitely. And I mentioned the Charmed epilogue earlier as well, and getting to see their legacy as the Charmed ones continue was really satisfying end for the series. Not to mention a huge conflict plot line throughout the entire show was that Piper and Leo, where, he was immortal, he was never going to grow old, and, she obviously would. And so getting to see that they did, in fact, get to grow old together, and their grandkids took over the legacy of the Charmed ones was a really nice, satisfying way to end the series.
See, that's the series that needs to happen, is the children taking it over with them still there.
Right.
As the aunts and the grandparents.
Yeah.
I mean, would that not be wonderful?
That'd be fantastic.
And they're still young enough to be really fun in those roles.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
I think it'd be great. Yeah.
Are there any secondary characters who need to have their story answered, but there isn't enough, or you don't plan on a sequel or a series with that character in it? Back to my frustration with Justified not having answers to the secondary character stories. Not that an epilogue would be a place in that series, because we didn't get enough to have anything tied up. They never even brought it to me. I was so upset.
Right.
But it may be that you need to tie up something with the secondary character. Maybe the character was hurt trying to protect the main character. Well, what happened to them? Are they crippled for life? Did they get beyond it? Did they find love? They're maimed and ugly now? I mean, did they commit suicide? What happened to them? And an epilogue can help answer that as well. What other plot lines might need to be answered for your reader to be truly complete?
And I have sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I have like a general question about that. How can we know if that kind of thing belongs in the main body of the novel rather than an epilogue, or whether we do actually need an epilogue?
I think, like you said, through editing, sit down, and say, okay, I need an epilogue to answer this question. Well, try to write that epilogue.
Yeah.
As you're trying to write it, it's going to become clear to you, this is not the place for this. I needed to put this in. Or it may say, yeah, this is perfect. I'm able to tie it up, bring into play what they are seeing from their point of view and how the main character's doing. It may give that sense of satisfaction. But if you're writing the epilogue and you're like, well, I'm now on page 20.
Yeah.
Then I think you might know I need to fix the body of my novel and not try to cram this into an epilogue.
Right. That's a really good suggestion, especially because I like writing scenes to kind of figure out a lot of things.
I think that's a great idea. I think your idea of writing scenes is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received from a writer, because you learn so much just from writing the scene. Where you learn where not to go. You learn, I don't like this character trait. That's not how this character's going to be. You learn so much just from practice writing, and you don't ever have to even use them.
Right. That's what I enjoy about it the most is, you get an idea of, oh, does this belong in the story? So you could do the same thing with an epilogue. But it's also no pressure if it doesn't end up in the story. So it doesn't have to be there, but you learn a lot.
I have a new book idea.
Oh.
It's like that meme, where with the couple, the boy and the girl are walking, and the guy's looking at this other girl. Okay, so yeah, the current girlfriend is my current work in progress, and he's looking at the new idea over here. That's me.
Yes.
And what made me think of it is I already want to write scenes.
Good.
Which with Harper, I haven't even gotten to that point yet.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to the point where there's enough that makes me want to write yet. And this new book
has already gotten there.
It's already there. I've already got scenes starting in my head that I just want to get down and write. And I need to do that.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be about the fates.
Yeah. Very nice.
Different twist on that. So
that's cool.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. But maybe you don't plan on writing a series and you're done with this world. If you're done with this world, make sure your reader is also done with this world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Don't leave things unresolved if you don't ever plan on coming back and revisiting this world. It's going to it's going to kill your reader to go, but what happened?
Right.
You know, have you ever had that nagging, but what happened to Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Not the books, because I haven't read the books, but the
Right. Right.
series had a lot of unresolved plot lines. It was like they had planned to go on for 10 more seasons than they did, and those just fell off, and I was so unsatisfied.
Right.
An epilogue might be able to be used to resolve some of those.
Yeah.
Or it may be that you're planning a spin-off and you can use your epilogue to continue those questions to go off into your spin-off. And then again, not all questions need to be answered. Your reader has the imagination. They might want to fill in the blanks themselves. So an epilogue should be reserved for those that need to be answered.
I like that you added that at the end here, because I think anything you include in your novel, but especially an epilogue, should be needed and necessary, and not just thrown in because you like the idea of an epilogue or something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then
there's a lot more we can talk about.
Yeah.
We could probably do a whole nother episode on prologues and epilogues with more details.
Yeah, definitely. One last point that I did want to add. I've gotten really big, and you mentioned it before. I just want to reiterate because it's important to me. But I've gotten really big into thinking about the purpose of everything that I do in writing. So just always ask yourself what the main purpose is for your epilogue, and can that purpose be conveyed throughout your main story? And I think that'll give you a really good idea of, oh, I actually do need this epilogue versus actually I can get across my point in my main story. So,
okay.
I have an interview question.
I already know what it is.
You do know what it is. Have you ever written an epilogue? And if you have not, do you think you ever will?
I probably will. I like to do things I've never done. That's like one of the books I'm writing right now is in first person present tense, which I had never done.
Yeah.
It came to me that way, so I had no choice to write it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done an epilogue. You know, I might have Dragon Fire might have had one. I'll have to pull it out and look.
I don't remember. I know I read it, but it was like in high school. So I was like 14, which was like 13 years ago.
Well, and it's part of a series. So I don't know, which I never wrote the second book yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I left it, but I might have done an epilogue in.
Gotcha.
I think I did actually, because there were unanswered questions with the couples and with the dragons and with the things that were going on. I may have done one, and I will probably use one again. There is a time and a place for them. I don't know that I'll ever plan to use it.
Yeah.
But you kind of know when, it's when it looks right.
Yeah. Wow. So very helpful. So very helpful. Yeah, no, I've never written an epilogue. I've also never written a prologue. That said, talking about this with this episode made me think a lot about my Aura series and the things that I could potentially do with epilogues in that series. So potentially with that one, but I'm not quite sure how I would go about it. So maybe I would probably end up talking to you about,
She's a writer too, y'all.
Goodness. But I'll probably end up talking to you about that as I decide whether or not I want to do it and whether you think it's necessary and like that kind of thing.
I think it's really helpful at the end of the series.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because you've gone through all of this, 6 books, and you're done, and it's time to move on to a different world and a different set of characters. An epilogue would help your readers be okay with that.
Yeah, true.
And so I can see it being necessary. No, not necessary. I can see it being a good thing to do at the end of a series.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, neat. I do have a sentence challenge for anybody who wants to participate in writing a page with this sentence. And it is, there's still a little more to be seen and done.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We're getting a fair amount from our patrons. That's doing it. So we're close to being able to read a lot of her stuff. I think you all will enjoy it. At some point, we'll probably do a mini episode with however many y'all send. Some of our own. I haven't written any either, but some of them have sparked, something in my brain. So to write a page with those might be fun. I really need to donate. I really need to put more time into writing.
Yes, donate your time.
It's been on the low priority, which it should never be because it's so important to me.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this new book idea because it really does have me wanting, I'm itching to sit down at a keyboard and just start writing.
Please do.
And I
Yeah.
think I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad for Harper because I got a lot of world building going on with her and it never.
Listen, I always blame my characters for whether or not they feel like talking to me,
Mhm.
So if I'm not writing that story and you're not going to talk to me about it, then I guess I'll just move on to my next
Mhm.
one. And then they get mad and come back eventually and
Mhm.
we deal with it
Come
then.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll come back. There are pieces of her that are falling into place.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'll be doing something and I'm like, "Oh, that's Harper. Okay."
I
And
love those moments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll make a note of that. But this new book is really starting to eat at my brain. I've got to maybe tomorrow even.
Do
Hopefully
it.
before
Yes.
we come back next week, I'll have done something with it because I'm in between court. Well, I got court Friday again, but I'm in between the big Zoom court.
Yeah.
And we have spring break coming up, so maybe I'll have some free brain time. Whenever I travel, my brain starts to think just being in a new location helps
Me
my
too.
brain. So
Me too.
maybe something will go with that.
Yeah.
But thank you all for listening. Thanks to Jen and Deanna, our patrons. We really, 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 really appreciate
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much.
If you all would like to become patrons as well, then come visit us at our Patreon. It's patreon.com/EDW. We really could use your help. Come to our website at eatdrinkwritepodcast.com.
All of our social media is there. Come and check us out.
What she said.
Yeah, what I said.
Uh, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. See you next time, y'all.
See you guys.